As always, Elliotte Friedman will be part of tonight's panel. You can check out his 31 thoughts on sportsnet.ca. And he joins us now for 3 of 31, brought to you by the next generation GMC Sierra Denali with the world's first available 6-function multi-pro tailgate. Elliotte Friedman looking spry in 2020, looking phenomenal, looking fresh, right as rain.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
How you doing, Friedge? How are things?
I'm good, boys. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
I'm right as rain. I am fresh.
Does New Year's at your place end at 10 p.m. Eastern? How does that go?
This year, I think it was like 12:02.
12:02?
Yeah, I put on a movie, and the next thing I know, I was asleep.
There you go.
We did the 12:02 at my house, too. You ring in the new year and then love, peace, and hair grease. I'm done.
I got to tell you guys, it's depressing from where we used to be to where we are now. It's shameful,
Nothing
really.
depressing.
For a lot of
Nothing
things.
depressing. Age is undefeated. Nothing depressing about it. We can't always end up with the underground, Friedge. You can't always be like that.
Oh, man. We've been there recently. Boy, do I miss it.
I heard this. I'll end the conversation there. Friedge, one leaf, a note, and then because we're going to get to this with CJ a little later on. I want to get to the other issues. What was the most interesting comment you got texted to you from an executive around the league or a coach after McDavid scored that goal?
The funniest line I got was, I thought you were telling me how good the Maple Leafs looked defensively lately. And I laughed and I said, you could have done that to anybody.
Yeah,
that's true.
That was probably the best line, just because the sheer sarcasm of it made me laugh. So
Yeah,
I think he's getting shafted on the second move. Like everyone's talking about the Riley, everybody forgets how he put it in.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Sorry, we're just
That's
admiring
ridiculous.
it again. Like it's mesmerizing. Like I'm in a zombie state.
But the finish, it's always like once you get them out of your seats, when you finish, it just goes over the top, and he did that. Speaking of finishing, there was very little for both the Canucks and the Habs last night. Mm-hmm. Which to you was more disappointing a loss? The 9-2 drubbing the Canucks took in Tampa, or for the third time this year, the Montreal Canadiens losing to the 11-win Detroit Red Wings?
Oh, it has to be B. You know, Tim, I don't really think there's any comparison. First of all, Tampa's a good team. They can do that to people. Secondly, the Canucks, 7 straight wins. You can have an off night. That can just happen. I mean, it was ugly, but you can forget it. You can move on. I think this year, you look at the Canadiens' record against New Jersey, against Detroit. As you mentioned, their third loss to the Red Wings this season. They've left a lot of points on the board. You know what? A couple weeks ago, they were right with Toronto, and now they're 7 out of the playoffs with, I think, 4 teams in between them. And, that's a really, really difficult and tough loss for them. And, you showed that highlight of Zadina. The Canadiens are one of the teams that passed on him in his draft year. And he talked about how he was going to fill the nets with goals for the teams that passed on him, the Arizonas and the Ottawas and the Montreals of the world. And he scored a huge one against them last night. If you're the Canadiens, you can't have that. I just think it's interesting. Bergevin goes out and he gets Kovalchuk to say, hey, I'm trying to do something, I'm trying to add, but, they're definitely going the wrong way. And I don't like to say it's over because you never know what can happen, but it's looking pretty bleak.
All right, he says that we want to stay in the race. And Marc Bergevin has kind of had this fine line of his 2 best players being 32 and 34, the rest of the roster being done, and now teetering on the edge of missing the playoffs for a 3rd straight year. What's the word around the league about what the Habs are looking at doing when this deadline rolls around?
Well, it might be changing, to be honest, Tim. When Marc Bergevin says that he won't trade his prospects, I believe him. Montreal has a really difficult time attracting top talent to their city in free agency. They have to draft it or they have to trade for it. And, Nick Suzuki looks like he's going to be a really good player. They traded for him. They're really hopeful with some of the kids that they've drafted, whether it's Paling or it's Jake Evans, or it's Romanov, who's coming over from Russia next year, expectedly, and they're not interested in trading that. They think they get it in-house, they got to develop it, they got to keep it. Some of their other players, look, I'm not convinced they'd trade Tatar or Petrie, but I think those would be guys that would have value to them. I think that if they were to put those players out there, I think they would have value. But if you trade them, you've got to replace them. Tatar is your leading scorer. Petrie's a very valuable defenseman. And those are guys who are both signed for next year. So you don't have to just replace them now. You have to replace them later. So I think, Tim, we're still in a bit of a phase of figuring out what Montreal's going to do. But I do think we're in a position here where they might be a seller.
If they're a seller, and I know there's a lot of people on Twitter bringing this up, but is anyone calling on Price and Weber?
First of all, I don't know if they would trade either one of them. First of all, Price has control over this.
Yeah.
He's got a complete no-move clause.
He was pretty pissed off, though, after the loss at home.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, that's the way he is. Like, what do you expect him to be? Happy? Like, he should be pissed off.
Yeah, I want him to smile on camera.
Exactly.
And say, this is awesome.
Of course he's going to be pissed off.
Everything is awesome.
The other thing, too, is you're not trading Carey Price right now from a position of strength. He's got, 6 years left at $10 million?
Mm-hmm. It's only 6.
I mean, even if you wanted to trade him now, how are you going to do that? To me, it's almost a crazy conversation. And the other thing, Weber is, again, okay, let's just why would you want to trade Weber?
To get younger to match the rest of your team would be the answer from those on Twitter suggesting this.
Well, again, it's not an easy contract to trade.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. And you're certainly not going to be able to do it. I can't imagine you could do that in season.
And you just said you got to trade and sign to get better in Montreal.
And you're going to have to replace him. Mm-hmm. Now, so let me say this: the people who are saying that, are you going to accept a full-blown rebuild? As you said, I think this is the 4th straight year without playoffs if they don't make it. Are you accepting more of that if you make those deals?
The only thing that sticks out on Price for each to me is he sounded the other night like he was kind of done. Like it didn't sound like typical surly Carey
change the pissed off to done.
Like I know what you're saying, but there was a feeling to me the other night like it was different. Do you think I'm misreading it?
No, I don't necessarily think that's it. I just think that if you go through Carey Price's history in Montreal, it's kind of gone like that, right?
Yep.
Like there's been times where he comes up. He wins the Calder Cup. He leads Hamilton to the Calder Cup. He starts off really well. He looks like the savior. And then, whatever happens, starts to be struggling. There's rumors about his life away from the rink. Halak takes the job, becomes the hero, and he's down. Let's trade Carey Price instead of Halak. They trade Halak. Price gets back up there. He has some great playoffs. He looks like he's leading them. He's the hero. And then again, there's a swoon. It's never been smooth waters with him there. It's always kind of been up and down. And I really like this puppet show I'm doing with my hands here. I just think that, for Carey Price, and I think he signed there because he liked it there, and I think he does legitimately want to win there. But I take all of that with a grain of salt, Sid, because it's never been always like this.
The roller coaster has always existed.
The roller coaster has always existed with Carey Price, and he's always overcome it. Now, he's struggling right now. I mean, there's no question about that. He's had a really wild season. But, he's going to have to come right out and say that he wants out of Montreal for me to believe that, because, we've heard this before, and he's always maintained he wanted to be there.
Right. I'll take the slings and arrows to have the conversation that I think people want to hear on whether or not, if they are sellers, it's Carey Price and Shea Weber. The one thing that I will say is, if you don't want to hit the rebuild button, is it really rebuilding when you miss the playoffs, if it happens this year, in 3 straight years, 4 of the last 5, and you've won 1 round in 6 seasons?
Well, I get that, and they're kind of in the dreaded middle right now.
Yes.
The one thing is they are trying to win.
Correct.
I think they're
Elliotte Kovalchuk proves that.
Yes, and they're kind of doing it both ways. They're reloading because they got kids and they want to hold on to and wait till they're ready. Yeah. You never know how long that's going to take. And also, you're trying to win with the players you've got. You don't have the Prices, the Webers, the Gallaghers of the world to lose. Those guys just aren't built that way. They're not good enough right now.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, again, if you trade those guys, you got to replace them. And, like Caden Primo, he looks really talented, but he's far away from being Carey Price.
Yeah.
Shea Weber may be 34 years old, but he competes really freaking hard. And if you lose him, how you're replacing that? And again, this all comes down to you're trading from a position of weakness right now if you're making these deals,
Correct.
which I think is always a bad idea.
The one thing we don't often bring up as to what's wrong with Montreal before we move on here, all first-round picks from 2009 to 2014 are no longer with the organization.
Yeah.
That cripples anybody. I don't care who you are. So unless they rectify that, I don't know where they're going. Yeah. All-Star game for each. Alexander Ovechkin, second straight year not going. Bill Daly on the Greg Wyshynski podcast this week said he is, quote, concerned with superstars not going to the All-Star game. St. Louis is the scene in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. I'm taking Bill at his word. I'm sure he is concerned. My question is, what's the league going to do about it?
Well, there's not really much more that they can do. He's suspended for a game, and he has to pick which game he's going to miss. I know there's a lot of fans in Montreal hoping it's not the one where he's there, because that's the last one, I think, before the All-Star break. I mean, what else can you do? Can you make it mandatory? They can't make it any more mandatory than it already is. You don't go, you have to miss a game. The one thing I do believe, and I like the fact that, Dylan Larkin kind of apologized for it the other day. I don't think he meant for it to turn as bad as it did. I think he was trying to make a joke that just bombed. But, the All-Star game, people may make fun of it, but it is a showcase for your league. The cities want it. It's a good event for them. The one thing I would love to say is, could the league say, could Ovechkin in the league, and sometimes I do wonder if some of this is if Ovechkin is still mad about the Olympics, and is that a factor in it and all? But I wonder if the league could say, okay, you don't want to play, instead of us suspending you, come down here, we'll fly you down, and you can kiss babies or do something for a day.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
mingle with the sponsors and whatnot is what you're saying.
Yeah, and the thing about Ovechkin is, and you're showing this video of him now, he's never not embraced it from the day he came over. It's tough for me to get really annoyed at him because he's always tried to be a showman and he's always understood the role that he's supposed to have around the league. He's never shied away from any of this stuff. So that's why I wonder if, for example, he's upset about the Olympics or something like that, because it's not really like him.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the solution is, okay, don't play, but come down here and kiss babies or talk to sponsors or sign autographs for a day.
Right.
And on top of it, never mind the viz we just ran, I've never seen a hockey player have the social media presence he had after they won the Cup. Now, whether you agree or disagree with all the partying, whatever.
Oh, who disagrees?
No,
it's hard to win.
I'm sure there's some people out there, not many. Not with you.
2020,
if
there's a lot of
I
people
won
who
the
disagree.
Stanley Cup, I'd go swimming in a fountain too.
Yes.
Come on, it's hard to win.
Before we let you go, I heard you on the writer's block last night. Do you got another shoe-in of the week for us?
Oh, my God. I got to tell you, I said this, we taped the podcast today. So a couple weeks ago, I had a bet. Brock Besser to score against the Penguins, and he always scores against Matt Murray.
Yeah.
And I canceled the bet. And I've been on a terrible losing streak since then, just awful.
For the record, though, Friedge, the Canucks having won 7 straight as an underdog last night was the correct play.
Sid
They were
was
plus
defending
180.
you.
Yeah,
Sid
They were plus 180.
See, this is
it was
where
a good bet.
I have slight issue with those that might be ripping you on social media. I'm sorry. How many 7 straight win teams in any league do you see be an underdog in any situation? That's good value, to quote an old friend of ours. I have no issue with that. So, quite frankly, I would have done it as well.
I'm looking tomorrow night. I want to see these odds. Arizona starting Aiden Hill against Tampa Bay, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What are the odds on that one going to be? I'm looking.
We could both look down at our phone and find it out in a hurry if you want.
Doing his best Jimmy the Greek impression.
I got to find it. I got to find it for tomorrow.
No odds yet.
Oh, wait. It's off the board right now, so I'll be looking at that one. But
they know you're
I got to tell you.
OTB.
I dumped on Brock Besser, and then I started betting college football, which I love and normally do well on. I've been on a terrible losing streak.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I just wanted to defend you a little bit on yesterday. I thought it was the right play.
That.
I thought it was the right play,
it
didn't work out. Whatever.
Yeah, 9-2. Thanks, Friedge. Always
Elliotte Friedman.
appreciate it.
Darn it, I had the -8. It's terrible.